An ominous warning from the Department of Homeland Security in the wake of the assault on the Capitol. A threat bulletin today saying anti-government, violent extremist groups opposed to the transition of power could continue to mobilize to incite or commit violence in the coming weeks.
What soft locations across the country may be targeted by these folks? Does it include critical infrastructure? Does it include houses of worship? We need to be prepared for all threats across a multitude of venues in this country.
Another distressing line in the Homeland Security Bulletin, a concern that domestic violent extremists may be emboldened by the January 6th breach of the Capitol to target elected officials. Multiple sources also telling CNN tonight there's growing concern about the safety of some lawmakers when they travel outside of Washington, D.C.
I think there is, a truth to that, and they feel emboldened. You will continue to see National Guard in Washington, D.C., because there is the continued view that the threat lingers.
Democratic Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro was among lawmakers briefed behind closed doors by the acting Capitol Hill Police Chief, Yogananda Pittman, who told them her department knew beforehand that there was a strong chance of violence targeting Congress, but did not take appropriate action to stop it.
I shook my head in disbelief. The question is, why wasn't it acted on? Who made the decisions about not moving forward with a greater sense of preparation for what turned out to be thousands of people at the Capitol, breaching the Capitol?
Questions that DeLauro told us were not answered at that briefing. We also spoke with Democratic Congressman Matt Cartwright, who was in the same briefing.
If not for pure dumb luck, there's no doubt that members of Congress and staffers and more Capitol Police probably would have been killed.
And there's new information tonight on the toll on police officers from the attack. Acting D.C. Police Chief Robert Conti told Congress 2 officers, one from his department, one from the Capitol Hill Police, took their own lives in the aftermath of the riots.
Everyone who played a part in trying to put down the insurrection, it certainly paid a price for that, whether being physically harmed, the psychological damage that's caused by something like that. The more you think about it, the more it starts to really kind of weigh on you.
New information on charges tonight, including a father and son from San Antonio who were in Washington for a birthday celebration, charged with entering a restricted building and disorderly conduct. And the FBI says Trump supporter Ian Rogers from California was charged after investigators discovered 5 pipe bombs at his home, dozens of weapons, and texts indicating he wanted to attack places associated with Democrats. He's not believed to be connected to the pipe bombs left near the Capitol on January 6th. His lawyer denies the accusations.
There are approximately 175 known defendants facing charges right now related to the Capitol riot on January 6th. But the FBI is still searching for many more, including the person who placed pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic Party headquarters. The Bureau has now increased the reward, offering up to $100,000 for help tracking down the person or people responsible. The bombs were discovered on January 6th. But the FBI now tells us they were placed the night before the riot. With us now, former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst Jennifer Rogers and CNN legal analyst Ross Garber. He teaches political investigations and impeachment law at Tulane Law School and previously represented 4 governors facing impeachment proceedings. Jennifer, as we learn more about the planning that happened in advance of the insurrection on January 6th, does that affect the argument that Trump incited the mob?
I think it does, Anna, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the House managers are able to make of this evidence. We know there's plenty in terms of video of what happened January 6th, and of course, President Trump's statements leading up to that day and on that day. The question is, what will they be able to put in about what these groups were planning in terms of violence and the insurrection itself, and what, if any, coordination might there have been between these people and the White House and the Trump campaign? Some evidence is coming out that there was coordination and actually help with the planning. And if the House managers are able to harness that evidence, I think that's going to be very powerful for the Senate trial.
Ross, take a listen to what Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson said about the Senate impeachment trial.
I'm very interested as to how the Senate is going to proceed with the trial because the level of responsibility is the issue. So to what extent are they going to delve into that level of responsibility in the Senate? But it also falls on the president and his defense team to articulate where the responsibility lies. Is that going to be done by witnesses, by depositions, summaries from the FBI? That's going to be interesting. And if I'm a member of the Senate, I would say I want to hear all of that evidence, make an appropriate judgment, and the American people will as well.
Ross, how important is it to lay out all the evidence during this trial as if it were a brand new case?
So it's interesting. In most impeachment trials on the federal level, they've mostly involved judges, and they've looked like trials that we've seen, either in a courtroom or we've seen on TV. They look like real trials with real witnesses and real presentations. But interestingly, the last presidential impeachments, Clinton and the first Trump trial, didn't have live witnesses. This trial, it's going to be a big question. Last time the Republicans blocked witnesses. This time they can't do that. And I think if the objective is to convict the president, that's going to mean changing a lot of minds, a lot of senators' minds, and a lot of American citizens' minds. That's going to take actual witnesses, actual testimony, actual evidence.
And so when you think about that, it's how do you change minds? How do you convince somebody to do something that they weren't initially planning to do? Jennifer, the Washington Post is reporting that in the day after this attack, where Trump supporters were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel called Pence and fought back tears. It just reminds me that, the days immediately following this attack were really filled with emotion. And we're still seeing new video now from this riot. And I just want to play a part of it. I want to warn our viewers that the video is violent. It's disturbing. It shows rioters brutally attacking police through the view of a body cam video from a D.C. Metro police officer. Being so close to that violence as you watch that video, how can anyone not be, emotionally impacted? So in the impeachment trial, the Democrats' goal, of course, is to convince some Republican senators to vote for conviction. Jennifer, do you think it's more effective to do that through facts or through emotion?
Well, you have to do it through facts, of course. I mean, that's the process, but you can't really leave emotion totally out of it because we all watched this happening in real time, and the senators actually were living it because they were in the building at the time. So they're not really going to be able to divorce themselves. But I do think that what's really going to make the difference, and this is along the lines of what Ross was saying, they're going to have to not just show that there was a violent mob that got stirred up and ran to the Capitol and did what they did, but that Trump himself, because he's the one on trial, that he's the one who incited this, and that he knew that this was the logical conclusion of what he was telling them to do. And so it's really important in all of that, not just that it happened, but that he expected it to happen. So they're really going to need to bring in this evidence about coordination, about the drumbeat of information that he was putting into all these people's heads over the months, and then his actions on that day. And I really do hope to see some witnesses who talk to us about what Trump was doing when he was sitting there watching TV, seeing these violent acts play out right in front of him, and why he was not at that time getting on Twitter and doing videos and saying immediately, stop this, go home, this is not what we should be doing. It took him a long time to do that, and even so, it was very tepid. So, I really would like to see evidence of that, because I think that is going to be critical in proving his actual culpability, not just the culpability of the people who ransacked the Capitol.
So as far as the timeline, how long this trial might last, many Democrats are signaling they want it to be relatively short. You'll recall the first trial for impeachment of President Trump was 21 days. We're hearing from senators like, Richard Blumenthal that the trial could be expeditious this time, a matter of days, not weeks. Does that make sense to you, Ross?
Yeah, so here's the problem. Jennifer is exactly right. I've been on this page, since the beginning. That is going to take a lot of new information. It's going to take subpoenas. It's probably going to mean fighting about subpoenas. It would mean a lot of witnesses. It would mean a lot of new information. That is not a quick process. And, I have my doubts that the Senate Democrats are going to have much patience for a long, drawn-out, distracting process. So they're going to have to decide, are they going to bring all of that stuff in? Are they going to, kind of have this full exposition of the issues? Or, especially since it looks like acquittal is probably a foregone conclusion, are they going to just try to, slam it through and get it done? This is a decision that's, fully in the hands of the Senate Democrats.
And February 9th is when it's all going to get underway. We'll be able to know the answer then. Thank you, Ross Garber, Jennifer Rogers. I appreciate both of you very much.